Hey guys, it's Ron and Henry again. Today I wanted to share some information about a podcast that I watched on kind of how food affects our body and our mental health, and also how some of the medications might be interfering with that and making things worse. So this is from a doctor, he's Dr. Palmer, okay? And he's been dealing with mental health for many decades, right? And he's the doctor that will you go in there and he'll prescribe you medication, right? And he realized that there was something wrong, and so but you can watch the podcast. I'll put the link in the description. It's an hour and a half, so this is just a summary of it, so you guys can kind of get the idea of what he's talking about and maybe learn something in the process. Okay, so when I was younger, I remember I was always hyper, more hyper than most, right? Maybe not than most, but I did have a little bit more energy, right? And as I got older, I just thought that's just the way I am, But then I noticed that a lot of people are getting diagnosed with this thing called ADHD, right? So now there's a big thing about ADHD, the kids go in there, next thing you know, the doctor's giving them pills and stuff, right? ADHD, autism, anxiety, right? Those are some of the ones he mentions, right? But they're not shortcomings, he says, right? They're more like, unique brain wiring, right? And they're often tied to our body's physical state, not personal flaws. Mental health isn't separate from physical health. So it's time, we view sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress, and our community as a unified system influencing our minds. The doctor mentions how extreme alcohol use and ultra-processed foods can stress both the brain and the body. These lifestyle choices fuel metabolic imbalance and mental decline. He also mentions that excessive red meat and medications can drive inflammation. Our genes may set the stage, but how we live our lives, nutrition, activity, decides the play. So exercise, from cardio to resistance training, boosts brain metabolism and resilience. It's essential for emotional and mental stability. Dr. Palmer goes on to propose that mental illness often stems from brain energy malfunction, inefficient cellular function, disrupted insulin signaling, impaired waste clearance. But he also stresses that people with mental health challenges often face shorter lifespans due to metabolic diseases, right? And he has a book, right? And he says that, first of all, this is a crisis, and his book, Brain Energy, addresses, lifestyle-driven interventions. Simple advice like eat less, move more, often fails. We need personalized strategies that consider how specific foods, especially processed ones, affect each individual's metabolism. Trauma, food, hormones, birth control, all alter metabolism and mental health. His book, Brain Energy, highlights diet-based recovery for ADHD and immune-aware approaches postpartum. Lifestyle, including nutrient-dense food, sleep, hygiene, exercise, supplement support, and social connection can be powerful alternatives or complements to meds. They also talk about Lewis Howes' book, right? That basically, talks about how to combat self-doubt and sustain positive momentum through daily habits, a perfect complement to metabolic healing His book is called A Meaningful Mission. That book aligns your passions with purpose, right? And then Howes encourages tackling fears with consistent small actions and using mindful reflection to stay resilient. And they say, don't just read it, do. Howes stresses that greatness is built through daily integrated practices, journaling, habit building, community support, not just motivation. The doctor talks about, like I said, over the years, how prescribed medication to a little girl, right? Or a little boy, it would cause them to gain weight, right? So now the kids are really gaining a lot of weight and they actually become obese. So now they're struggling with obesity. So then they go back to the doctor and then they put them on other kind of medications, right? But nobody ever tells them how to change their diet and to stop eating these certain foods, right? So that's what I learned from this. I was like blown away. But that's just a little part of it, right? Nobody tells us how to change our diet or how to do it. It gives the steps to do it. So, when you look at, I'll put his book in the description, but that's what he talks about more. You can formulate a plan and follow it, and you could change everything, like I did. But for me, it was hard because I had to lose everything. And I lost my health, I lost everything I had. And then that forced me to dig deep. And then I didn't care what happened. I just knew that I'm not going to ever go back to the way it was before. So that I made those changes right there in that moment. And then because my brother passed, so I was so mad anyway that I was not going to fail. There was no way. I went to college and I got all these degrees, and I didn't even like school, right? So you have to dig deep, you guys, and make stuff happen. We can go try to take a pill. Some people, maybe they need to take Ozempic, right, for a little while, and then get themselves, the weight down a little bit. But I also heard that they're not going to let you off that. They're going to tell you you're going to have to take that forever. So to me, that's a scam. You shouldn't have to take anything forever. I did this thing called Nutrisystem, and it got me down. Boom. That was when I first got all the weight off. I got down to the weight I am now. But then every time I stopped taking the Nutrisystem, the weight came back. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm stuck on their food. But then I learned how to do it myself. I tried a couple different programs. I tried several different diet plans, or I should say food plans. But now I basically did it myself, and there's several different ways you can do it. And it's all free on my channel. Basically, you can download everything. So what I would recommend is, besides maybe reading his book to understand what the medications are doing to people and how they're affecting more than just we're trying to help our mental health, but it's actually causing more issues, right, for most people. Not always. There's probably some people that need that because they're having some, they're at a certain level, a certain stage where, it's dangerous, but just like the Ozempic, right? Maybe some people need that stuff because it's gotten so out of control, right? Just like if your mental health got out of control, or if your weight got out of control that bad, maybe that's something you need. But for me, I didn't do that, no. I just dug deep. And I made all the changes I had to make. And now, today, I get to teach, to show people how they can do it too, So, like I said, on this channel, you have, if you go to this, there's some playlists, okay? I have a playlist on longevity. I have a playlist on, like, motivation. I have my daily motivational quotes I put every day. As a history teacher, I use that. I tie that into longevity. But I also share, like, how to get motivated every day. Monday through Friday, you'll see a new video, just little short ones. But then these videos right here, I'm doing twice a week, and I'm trying to show people how food and exercise and, maybe even, mindfulness, right, can change your life. And you can feel like you can feel and be the person you've always should have been, right? You shouldn't be suffering. Okay? We shouldn't be running to the doctor all the time for a pill, right? But once they get you on them, it's like, damn, how do I get off? Now, I don't want you guys to stop taking your meds. I want you to definitely consult your health care, specialist or whatever, when you're making changes, right? But when you look at the blueprint, the playlist called Your Blueprint for Weight Loss Success and Your Blueprint for Exercise Success, all you have to do is watch the videos, download the plans, and you can choose, there's different plans, but watch the video, then download the plans, okay? Watch the videos, and then you can download your strength training plan. I show my workout on there, but you don't have to do that one. I have a beginner workout on there, right? I have food plans. There's several different ones for weight loss, for strength, right? I also have shopping lists, so you can know what foods to not eat, what foods that you can go ahead and you can just bring that right with you to the store. And I even talk about the aisles you probably shouldn't go to. Just stay away from those aisles. The main aisles, they're not going to put the organic in there. They're going to try to, or the cleaner foods, they're going to try to put the processed foods that they keep pumping out that keeps making money, and they can stay on the shelves for a long time because they have all these chemicals in there. Make sure you check out the doctor's book, right? And then I'm going to put it in the description. And then also Lewis Howes' book. That guy's been through a lot. Okay, and thank you, Lewis Howes, for putting this podcast out, and thank you, Dr. Palmer, for putting yourself out there. Okay, I'm sure you guys will really appreciate what I'm doing here too if you check out my channel, which I'm probably going to reach out to you guys one day, but I'm just finishing developing my channel now. But everything's there. I mean, I have videos on longevity. I have videos on how you can get your health back and all that stuff. Okay, but these are the free downloadable worksheets and stuff that come with the video. So you watch the video. A lot of us are visual learners. My students are visual learners. I'm a visual learner, so I have to watch. But then all you gotta do is print this up and go, and then you can go to work. So, for example, this right here is your ultimate shopping list and food guide. Okay, and it even has how many grams of protein and it has all kinds of different, it has about meat, it has veggies and all that stuff. So basically you can understand kind of what you're getting. It has beverages. I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I have the calorie count right next to it. And you can add, if you, and it even talks about if you work out, you're probably going to want to put more, right? And then I have stretching exercises, so you can start off with your stretches. You can know what you're doing. I have a video on stretching, so you can learn how to stretch, and to warm up and stuff like that, right? I have snacks too. Well, I have snacks on that part too, on the food guide, right? But then I also have, your workouts. I have workouts for weight loss. I have workouts for building muscle, so you can, if you want to get some muscles and, get ripped, it's all on there. So I also created a video of how the Hollywood actors and stuff, how they get in shape. That one right there is, people kind of like that video. If you want to check that one out too, right? I have one, how people in the 1960s, why they were in so much better shape than we are today, So, I have videos on longevity also. That's what that's about, right? So I have people showing the people that live to be 110 on what they eat. And it's funny, it all correlates to this. So, you guys, thanks for watching, making it through the video. Hopefully this makes some sense to you. You're understanding that, you put that stuff in there, it's going to affect the way you think. It's going to affect your body, the way you look. And, it'll affect, your life, your whole life. So, like I said, if you like the video, give me a like. And then I would love to hear a comment, and I'll reply. I will promise you I will reply to your comment. I would love to hear if you're going to get started with this now. And then, subscribe. And make sure you check out your blueprint for weight loss and exercise success on the channel. And have a great day.